We are live. This is a Pitchdeck Asia, powered by Asia Tech Podcast, a special today because guess who's in the hot seat today? Pitchdeck Asia, Graham Brown, and the management team of Pitchdeck Asia. Let's have a quick round robin and introduce yourselves. Who we've got in the studio, sitting over here?
Hi, this is Anish here.
Anish, welcome.
Yes, thank you.
So usually when we do Pitchdeck Asia, Anish sits in the corner taking notes. He basically does a breakdown. He does an analysis of every startup that comes here. So if you get those one pages broken down nicely into 6 sections, it's Anish who does those.
Thank you.
All right. So to your right, who do we have here?
Hi, I'm Prarthana, and I
What do you do?
What do I do? So I'm the first contact if you want to come on the show, and otherwise also the entire onboarding and the events that are coming up. So
Yeah.
yeah,
So if you're coming to our Pitch Deck Connect event on the 20th,
March. Yeah.
it is Prarthana that you've been communicating with,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll be managing the whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. How exciting.
It's very exciting. Yeah.
Off camera, we have our tireless studio engineer, Bharat. You've probably seen him. If you've been in the studio, he's the guy that sits behind the screen, beavering away diligently. So he's off camera today, but you know that he's there looking after things. So today we're going to talk about Pitchdeck Asia. We're going to talk about Pitchdeck Asia, the company raising funds, and we're going to walk through the pitch deck. So let's start with the problem and the market at the top. So maybe we can jump into the PDA pitch deck itself and we can have a look. What is the problem and the market that we're involved in? So if you are coming to the Pitch Deck Connect event, you will get access to this investor deck as well. For now, we'll talk through it and do a demo live on your screen. So let's talk about where we are. Startups in Asia. This is a market which is full of activity. 6 to 30 million startups in Asia. Where did we get that number from, Anish?
Yeah, actually, we just looked at the total entrepreneurial rate, which is actually the number of people, working population. How much percentage of that is into entrepreneurship and startups?
Okay.
So Asia has one of the highest, which is around 13%. So if you just work backwards, it comes to anywhere between 6 to 30 million.
Yeah, this is real back of the envelope stuff as well. So we've got 6 to 30 million startups in Asia. We have, and obviously on the other side of the table, the angel investors. There's about 3,700 angel investors registered on Angel List, and Singapore was the highest jurisdiction there.
Yes.
So about 1/5 of all angel investors in Asia. Obviously, there's a bit of an English bias there as well, but that's what you find on Angel List. And it's a market that's growing. Tell us about these deals that went down just last week. We had some big deals in the VC side of things, as well as some large deals on the angel side. We have Blink who are in the studio. Tell us a little bit about those 5 deals at the bottom that we got there.
Yeah. So this was a headline news. If someone has read it, just in the first week of March, Southeast Asia had 1.7 billion investment. Obviously, the major part was Grab, but then we had other companies like Gojek and Halok and Blink, who was here last week on our show, raising quite a substantial amount of money in the 1 week, just 1 week of this month.
And even the week that followed, we had 25 million with CXO Network as well, which is a Singaporean startup. So the investments are going strong, especially when you look at Blink, for example. They were in the studio, like you said, Bob Chua and the team there, 2 million in seed.
Yes.
So, there is no shortage of seed equity at the moment in Southeast Asia in particular. And, put all those numbers together, you have a very active market. Now, now let's talk about who's actually in the market trying to solve the problem. We'll talk the problem in a minute. Let's actually look at who the comparables are. So there's a lot of people in this market trying to make sense of it, map the market. You have Angel List, for example, which raised 400 million from a Chinese venture firm. And you have other platforms, from the funded platforms like Funded Here to the directories, the lists, if you like E27 and Tech in Asia, which have raised respectively 8.1 and 8 million. Sorry, no, they've raised 11 and 3 million, and revenues about 8 million. So there's a lot of funding that's gone into these platforms to help make sense of the startup ecosystem in Asia. However, let's talk about the problem. If we can jump forward. And here we have just some numbers. These are back of envelope numbers that we've calculated. So they're not wholly scientific, but they're starting points. The problem is noise, in particular signal to noise. There's no lack of deal flow at the moment. The problem is quality deal flow. This is a very Asian problem just because of the numbers. You've got the 6 to 30 million startups. Now, if we were to divide the number of startups by the number of angel investors, roughly 1,000 to 5,000 startups per angel investor,
Yes.
which is a lot of noise, right? And then if you look at how many investments an angel actually places, it's about 1 in 5 million. So think about that. If you're an angel, you're at most, an active angel is probably doing about 6 deals plus. That means they're placing about 1 in 5 million startups in Asia.
Yeah.
So, they're not scouring 30 million and looking for that 1 in 5 million. It's really now down to where do they get access to this information. And on top of that, you have the fact that the market is growing. I put 10 billion down here. What was the numbers for China? Roughly about 10%. That was China alone, wasn't it?
Yes. Southeast Asia being the biggest after China.
Yeah.
But China alone was giving big numbers.
Okay. And Southeast Asia, again, is about 10 billion itself, isn't it?
So yes, I think from one of the data showed that in 2018 itself, Southeast Asia, only the tech companies had around 11 billion of investment, which is double of 2017.
Right.
So
Okay. Excellent. Okay, so we've identified the problem. It's a noisy market. It's very difficult to understand who's who, and it's growing fast. It's only going to get worse in terms of noise. Maybe we jump back into the pitch deck now. So we broke down the problem. Really, there's 3 elements to this problem, which are deal immediacy. Most of the actual deals themselves are focused on entertainment, and they're unfiltered. So let's go back through these. These are the problems for both startups and angels. For the angels, for example, a lot of angels rely on referrals or their immediate network, so who they went to business school with or who they know. Yet go back to the numbers, if they're placing 1 in 5 million, that is an impossible number to maintain. They're not getting access, and this creates bias as well.
Yeah.
And I think if you look at the numbers on Angel List, only 1 of the top 50 angel investors in Singapore
is a female.
Is a female, yeah. So, it's incredible, given that 27.5% of startups are run by female founders, right?
Yes.
That's in Singapore. That is a major bias. Short form entertainment. Pratana, you've been to plenty of these pitch competitions.
Yeah.
What's the deal there?
Firstly, it's messy. And secondly, it's just like 5 minutes. How can a startup founder tell about their entire journey? And how can an investor just put in the money based on the numbers they're showing on the slides, right?
Yeah.
So that's why story is important about the founder, about the team that needs to be told.
Yeah. So these pitch competitions, very short form, entertainment based, Shark Tanks. They have all the judges, you have 1 winner and 99 losers. You wonder how the Google boys would do if you put them on a pitch competition stage. What are the thoughts? Do you think they would ace it, or do you think they would get booed off?
Definitely not, because what I've seen is the short form is more of by people looking at Shark Tank.
Yeah.
The notion is that how well you can put the startup founder on the spot, sort of. But that should not be the approach. It's more collaborative, right? Because angels have equal amount of interest in investing in a startup than this. So you need people to kind of talk. So that's what we don't see at a startup pitching event. Even
worse, speed dating.
Yeah.
So, it is kind of the same. You don't get married by meeting somebody through speed dating. The numbers are pretty poor, surely. But, however, like all relationships, it takes conversation and time. And I think it's something that the Google boys would do badly at on the stage. So if you want to find a Google in that 30 million, you're not going to find it at a Shark Tank demo day or pitch competition, potentially. But there are people who are good. I think the point is people are good at these pitch competitions. And there's some startups that just do that. All they do is pitch competitions, right? And they're unfiltered as well. This is the other problem. So we talked about the 30 million, analysts are something that VCs have, but angels don't have analyst teams.
Yeah.
So, how do they know? They don't have, investment managers, analysts, research managers who can go out and filter these networks. So we have a problem. And it's a problem which is affecting angel investors because they don't get quality. And it's a problem affecting startup founders because they don't get access to the right angel investors. And bear in mind that most startup founders don't even know there is such a thing as a good angel investor and a bad one, right? And this is a problem in itself. All right, so let's have a look at what the solution is. And we spent a lot of time thinking about this. So I think, in terms of pitches, we've gone quite into depth into the problem to understand it a bit better and understand how to frame it a little bit better. So here we have, if we look at the quadrant of potential solutions, and these are all the solutions that are out there that tend to be focused on the left-hand side, which is short-form entertainment or lists, the sound bites, whether it's, the I'm in, I'm out, or 5 minutes, I'm getting on a plane, decide now type, or it's the lists, which is you just go and see the text, or they tend to be localized. So you can have a great one-to-one coffee meeting with a founder or an angel at a hotel, for example, but it's not scalable, right? Exactly. You can only do it at your local hotel, and you can't do that across the 30 million market. So what we're trying to do is get the best of both worlds. We're trying to get long form and scalability. So the long form is the video and the scalability is the platform. So this is how we plan to do it. And this is what we're building now. So we move from immediacy to reach, where you build a searchable, customizable, Asia-wide platform. You go long form. What's the average length of our videos now?
At least around 40-45 minutes.
40-45 minutes. Some go a bit longer, don't they?
Yes. We have had shows which have gone up to 1 hour as well.
Yeah. So. We had Bob Char did about an hour, didn't he?
Yes, just like.
And, I think the point is, if you're serious about investing in an early stage startup, you really want to know about that person.
Yeah.
And you can't get that on a list. I think maybe it's worth spending a little bit of time about why seeing somebody do a video pitch has a qualitative difference to a list or a demo day or a pitch competition. What do you think people actually see when somebody comes in the studio and they're talking about their why and their background and their backstory and so on? What do you think somebody gets out of that that's missing from the short form?
I think it's the storyline, the entire storytelling behind it, because they also believe that, angel investors and early stage VCs, they invest in the people rather than the product.
Absolutely.
So that is what actually, and we don't move the pitch deck out. We still, walk through the pitch deck the way it's happening right now. So that element is still there. It's just that giving them more relaxed environment rather than, hey, it's an exam or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, the story is important, and the pitch deck really should be the starting point for that discussion, isn't it?
Yeah. It also gives a complete picture of the startup, because often you don't know how they have been through. So like how Pratna was saying, the story behind it. So we have had many startups who have pivoted from their earlier solutions that we thought of and then become successful. So it's important for investors to know that they are taking in their failures and kind of learning from them. This doesn't come out in a startup pitch. It's more in a long, like a 40-45 minute pitch, which is like a more conversational. It's easier for things like this to come out.
Yeah, these are important pieces of data points, right, that you want to know. Because in that 5 minute pitch, you're just going to give the polished, punchy version of what you're doing, not the real sort of backstory as well. Okay, great. So this is what I call the emotional due diligence, is where an angel can actually see a startup founder, and the emotional aspect is like, do I connect with them?
Yes.
And there's no rationale or justification for that. You just have to say, yeah, I like that person, I don't like that person. And that is sort of 90% of the relationship moving forward, right? And if you don't like somebody, there's nothing you can do about it, right? Yeah. But you can't actually see that on a list or maybe through a pitch competition. All right, so there we go. That's the short form side. And the unfiltered moving to the filtered side. We jump back into the pitch deck as well. So this is where we cut out 90% of the noise. And a bit of backstory to ourselves is when we started out, we thought that the investors would be the first people to pay. And people said that startups wouldn't pay for Pitchdeck Asia, because startups don't have money, etc. They're bootstrapping. Yeah, when we started charging, we went, we did our first test where we did our first 40, 50 shows for free to get into the rhythm and the groove of it. And then we started charging people for, initially $150. what happened to the quality of the startups that we got in?
It definitely went up because what we could see from that was the intent. I mean, if people are ready to pay the 150, surely startups are short of cash when they don't splurge on things. But if they are willing to put up this money to come and tell their story and share their story, it shows that they are very, very serious about getting out there, speaking to the right people. So that's like a filter in itself.
Yeah, that's a great filter, and probably one of the most important.
Yeah.
Because as an angel investor, if that person values time, then you know that cuts out 90% of the noise straight away. The people who are going to waste your time are not ready. People who don't have pitch decks, who don't have their numbers together. Everybody that's paid has got their numbers together.
Yeah.
You know, they've got a pitch deck.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that saves a lot of wasted conversations, right? And also, it then appeals to people who have maybe a bit more experience in capital, because what we saw when we started charging for the startups is that a certain type of startup started coming. We started getting more corporate dropouts, right?
Yeah.
In a positive way. And the corporate dropouts are people with 15, 20 years experience. They know what's broken. They have some money. They have networks behind them. They're not going to change the world. They're just focused on one specific problem that may be in data analytics or HR or travel, for example. Yet these people statistically are proven to be more likely to be successful. I think the Harvard Business Review said the average age of a successful entrepreneur was 45. So these are the kind of people that are coming on the show now. You know, these are the kind of people willing to pay that kind of money. So back to the pitch deck. Yeah, so the filtered part is removing the noise. And, you know, people say, who edits this stuff? Well, nobody edits it. And that's the point. Like, if you look at a website, you've got an editor. If you go to a pitch competition, they've all been edited. You know, I choose you, you, and you. Or you have some kind of demo day. It's all been edited, right? We remove editors. There's no editors. It's self-editing. So you know that the people there are serious. And that gets it down to the 10%. Getting it from 10% to 1% is what happens at the Pitch Deck Connect events, right? Where you get to that 1% of startups who really are worth your time. And I think if you place editors in that, the editors are driven by the economics of shelf space. Like, they can only have 6 startups at their event or 6 startups on their platform, on their website. For us, we can have 30 million in theory, right? So there's no editors. It's long tail. So that's the solution. Let's move on. Let's talk about where we've come so far. We built a studio back in June, July. We moved to Singapore. Put 150K of personal money in. So, you know, that was all about validating it and understanding, you know, what the business model was. How many shows have we done now?
With startups?
Yeah.
It's almost nearing 100. It's 80, 90 odd startup founders have come into our studio till now.
Right. We've done a lot more shows generally, though. I mean, so we've got our competence and expertise. How many shows have we actually done? We must have done about,
overall?
Yeah.
I think more than 460. The last count was
Yeah,
460.
it's around
465.
450, 460.
So we're good at production, right? We've done 400 plus shows on the podcast, and most of them video now, right?
Yeah.
And we validated the payment and the events as well. So how much are we charging for the event, Pratana?
We're charging $250.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So it's enough to scare off time wasters, right? We're not going to make big bucks out of the event itself, but it's a validation in itself, right?
Yeah.
There's a big difference between people who come for free and people who pay, right?
And it's not just the event that we are giving them, it's like the show as well. So it's a whole package.
Okay, good. Back to the pitch deck. Right, this is what we built. So here's just 4 examples of people who've been on Pitchdeck Asia TV very recently. Let's talk about those. We had in the studio Jumper. What were those guys about?
They were a dating app basically, but a more Muslim-friendly dating app.
Yeah.
So it's something very unique. People don't actually come across it.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are many dating apps that people see, but they had a very different story to tell.
They are trying to add the cultural aspect to the dating.
Yeah. I really like them, and Lisa, the founder. And the reason why I think we gave, you know, that was a real result for us to get her onto the platform is because those kind of apps wouldn't get mainstream publicity. You know, it's great having the cool technology of the day or whatever the latest, you know, trend is. But it's the people who really understand what's broken in their background. And she, I think, had about 15 years of experience. 15 years experience in online dating.
Yeah.
Offline.
Both. Yeah.
Yeah.
So dating, online and offline. She was like, not just, she was actually running these dating services, right? So, okay. And Blink in the studio recently. What was interesting about them? Their raise, wasn't it?
Yeah.
2 million seed.
Yes.
His background, so Bob Chouard's background was he had successfully IPO'd, gone public in the UK with his Pulse group. I think at peak it was valued about 40 million.
Yes.
Yeah, he was saying.
It was listed at 40. Now it's much higher, apparently. So,
okay. Yeah. So IPO'd it at 40.
Yeah,
okay. All right. So that's a high quality startup, right? Okay. And then Own Biosciences, finding a cure for cancer.
Yeah.
Vishal Doshi, small molecules, if you're into pharmaceuticals. Very interesting approach to pharma research there. And again, somebody who really knows what's broken, Propene, and they, again, come from the world of blockchain. Some great investors as well. Who are their seed investors?
They had Golden Gate Ventures, they had SG Innovate.
Right.
Yeah.
So high quality startup as well.
Yeah.
So, these are startups that we want to get more of on the platform. Niche startups, high quality, experienced founders, and people with great backing.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of people we're getting on at the moment. And, our goal is to get, a wider spread of those. Right now, focusing mostly on Singapore. But the idea is, as some people have said, we're the YouTube for pitches. We like to think of the MTV for the startup ecosystem. Give everybody a voice. Democratize the whole pitching process. Don't let it, don't give it to the editors and let them decide who you can see and who you can actually get in contact with. So we validated the TV. What's next? The platform itself. We've built version 1 of the platform.
Yes.
And you can search for startups under category. What sort of categories have we got in there? Blockchain?
We have multiple, blockchain, retail, AI, logistics, travel.
Yeah.
Okay. And similarly with countries as well, obviously it's very Singapore specific at the moment.
As of now, yes.
Yeah, but we have, like today in the studio, we have one coming from
Australia and one from Taiwan.
Yeah, they're coming in for the event, which is great. So the footprint is expanding without us sort of expanding our marketing budget. You can go into the platform, you can search for startups under different categories, and you can go and then watch their long-form studio pitch. And if you're an investor, you can go down there, download their investor deck and see what events they're going to be attending, like Pitchdeck Connect 1, 2, and so on. We're adding a functionality here to add the stage and the raise, so you can search, let's say, just pre-Series A, just Series A, or just minimum entry ticket 50,000 and so on. So you can really drill down. Let's say you were searching for pre-Series A in health tech in Singapore. You can then go in and drill down in that kind of granularity and then go and see who those people are, see their pitch deck, see their long-form pitch as well, and see then if they're coming to an event.
Yes.
How about that? Like front to back in terms of your filter for quality deal flow. Let's have a look at some of the audience data. This is what we've been busy building. Audience size, what have we got there? Viewership, 24,000. How was that?
This was end of Feb, so it's already much past that now. Again,
okay.
So
what was that based on? Just YouTube?
YouTube and SoundCloud.
Okay.
Yeah.
So our two big platforms, YouTube for video, SoundCloud for the podcast, the audio version of it. Audience reach as well, not just Asia.
Yeah.
Because we got people watching in the US as well, which is...
Yeah, we actually, if you look at the top 10 cities that we are at, we are covering Europe, Asia, and America.
Yeah.
So
all
the major continents.
Which is interesting because even though our startups are Asian-based, there is an increasing interest in Asia from outside Asia, and we're trying to cater for that, right? So in the future, connecting Silicon Valley with Asia will be a major sort of opening of the door to talent and investor funds as well. And YouTube, the number of hours watched, 2,198 hours of content watched, which is, who knows, about 3,000 hours of pictures, potentially. So it's growing. We're getting there. Yeah. though. It's an organic process, but that's how you grow an audience. Let's talk about some of the content and partnerships we have here. These are with accelerators, co-working spaces, funds, education. Pradana, can you tell us a little bit about some of these that we got on the, maybe some of these names as well?
Yeah, so we recently did a podcast with Vinny Laurie from Golden Gate Ventures. Then we also did it with Startup Cylon. So this was actually part of our ATP tour in which we were going to different ecosystem builders and getting them on the show, telling their story as well. We are also working with SIM from our Pitchdeck University part, in which we are helping them with telling more about storytelling, how to pitch and stuff.
E27?
E27 Echelon, we are going to be media partners with them, and we're very excited for that as well. So
excellent. Well, there's a whole bunch of names in there.
Right.
The point is we've done stuff with all of them, particularly content-wise, so we're on their radar. And in the case of Antler, for example, close relationship there with the startup generator, accelerator as they call themselves. We've had their startups come on our show, sent by Antler themselves. That was an interesting... Who were the startup that actually sent by Antler? Because we had
one was Absolute.
Yeah.
Manan and Harsh.
Okay.
They came in.
Yeah.
And then Josudu, Anit Islam.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Aman. Yeah.
So there's an interesting development where the actual accelerators are sending their startups, or they're coming from the accelerators to us to get in front of angel investors. So the more we can build relationships with accelerators, the more we can get access to Asia's startup ecosystem. Okay, PDC 1. So Pitch Deck Connect 1 is around the corner. This is a validation of our first event, and validated in the fact, by the fact that of all the people listed here, so the 17 startups and the 5 angel investors, we got them to open their wallets.
Yeah.
Nobody got in free except for one who won a golden ticket. But apart from those, everybody else paid. How much did we make on that event? About
around $4,000, yeah.
$4,000, yeah. So, I mean, obviously, again, it keeps the lights on. But the point is that we got people to pay because that creates quality. It's a filter in itself. 5 angel investors and 17 startups. Any insights on the kind of startups that we have? What sort of stages there are? How much they're raising?
They're anywhere from pre-seed, seed to pre-series A. So I think a couple of them are even going into Series A.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's across the spectrum sort of.
Yeah. So this kind of an event won't be like competition. It's more like collaboration.
Yeah.
Where these startups even the early stage startups can also learn from startups who are raising Series A now.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a lot of cross, category learning going on. So startups talking to startups, angels talking to angels as well.
Yeah.
So we have 5 angel investors here, all kind of different levels as well, which is great. Rina Neo, Sam Gibb, Joseph Mokano, Stephen Liu, and Vineet Kumar. They are all pretty active angel investors.
Yeah.
So that was the pre-qualification. Are they active? Are they on cap tables? Have they done deals recently? Are they referred by each other? Because the problem in Asia is that there are a lot of angel investors, quote unquote, who aren't angel investors. And that wastes a lot of time for startups. And it's also wasting a lot of time for the angels, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to bring in people who are asking, what's a convertible note or anything like that. You want people who are educated and who are ready to do deals, because angels want to do deals with angels, like co-invest together. They want to learn from each other as well. Sure, there's an outer rim of, early stage angel investors who are onboarding as angels, but, we can educate them through Pitch Deck University.
Yeah.
These events are specifically for active angels and qualified startups. Yeah. So that event's coming up here in Singapore. Format for the event is pre-event. What happens?
So the pre-event actually will be sharing with investors these long-form pitches, so startup profile and their investor decks as well. So the whole idea is that the investors have also listened to the shows, also gone through the pitch deck. So when they're actually meeting the startup, they're talking more, taking it to the next level and the Q&As.
Yeah.
And the other way around as well. So we are telling the startups as well to do their homework.
Absolutely. That's the missing part in a lot of this, isn't it? That go and do your due diligence, right? And the investors will use the videos as pre-event due diligence. So there's no pitching at the event. Right? There's no competition. There's no winners and losers. There's no competition. There's no like 5 minutes and you're done. Everybody gets a chance to speak and interact with everybody. So let's remove all that short form entertainment and just have it about networking. An angel should come to the event and say, I want to meet you. I don't want to meet you. I'm not sure about you. I've got some questions for this one, right? They should come qualified and they know what kind of questions they want to ask. And also the real benefit of sitting angels around the table with a startup is angels can kind of learn what each other is asking, the kind of questions to those startups. So if they may ask kind of the questions that you wouldn't ask, but everyone's going to come with a different angle and a different insight as well. And for the startups, it's a great experience, right? They get to sit in front of 5 to 6 angels. They get to learn. If anything, they're going to take away a lot of feedback as well. So that is the event which we validated. Now it's cookie cutter. How do we replicate that across Asia? That's coming up in a minute. Some testimonials as well. Very briefly on this, let's talk about Museo. We love Hazel Savage and her team. They did really well. They came on to Pitchdeck Asia back in October, November?
Yeah, it was sometime that September time. Yeah.
Right. So the AI-powered music startup.
Yeah.
She came onto the show. They then went on to raise $1 million with Wavemaker. And they won an award with us as well.
Yes, they were in the top 5 of our 2019 awards.
Yeah, which was great. It gave everybody a bit of publicity as well. And then she got on the radio. Was it Money FM?
Yeah, she was on Money FM.
Yeah. And that's the second time people who've been on our show have come onto Money FM. The other ones were Blue Meg.
Yeah.
So Blue Meg got on Money FM as well, which is great. So, I mean, again, this is the megaphone for the startups, right? All right, so let's move on. What we're going to do now is look at our growth plan, so into the business end of the pitch deck, where we are now. So we've broken it down into 3 stages, the next 3 months, 3 to 9 months, and 9 months plus. Really where we are is about continuing the validation of the model, validating the events. So can we repeat that event? Can we get people to pay for number 2?
We have already started getting that.
Yeah.
So that's the good news.
What's the news, Pratana?
So we already have 1 confirmed startup and 3 more who are on the verge of just confirming.
Excellent. So that's great.
Getting that.
So rather than go bigger on event 1, we book people in, get them to pay for event 2, and maintain the quality. So we've already started the validation process, and then part of that will be how do we take that to different cities, which we'll talk about in a minute. How do we charge membership for this? Because obviously there's a real interest for angels in accessing this content and these events as well. How do we grow the platform and the events to include different verticals as well? So we've been approached by early stage funds, a number of conversations, and some of the brands we've shown already earlier on about running this event for them.
Yeah.
So, we could plug our startup platform into their accelerator or their fund, VC fund. So we could white label those events. Let's talk about what we're going to do with the growth plan here as well. So we're starting out in Singapore. That's where we're based. That's where our studio is. 9 months onwards, assuming a pre-series A success, our goal is to open a studio in Hong Kong. That's the best shot, the best option at the moment for, bridgehead into Chinese market, the Northeast Asian market as well. All the white stars. If you're listening on audio, I'll explain what this means. This is where we have our studios, Singapore with a goal to open one in Hong Kong, and this is where we plan to do our events. So the most immediate choices for our events would be KL. So we already have a foothold in KL. We're looking to do an event there soon. from there, the next one will be Hong Kong, potentially Bangkok and Jakarta as well. So anywhere there are startups and angel investors, we can go.
Right.
So that is next. That will be a plan for us for 2019 and 2020 onwards. Let's talk about who we are and also what we plan to do for the next 12 months, what we're raising. A look at the management team that we have here. This chap on the left is my voice, Graham Brown. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years. So hopefully I'm one of those people, as they say, 45 is the optimum age for a startup founder. I'm 46, so maybe I'm over the hill. But there you go, 20 plus years as an entrepreneur, but 20 plus years at coding as well. So starting out in AI, graduate of artificial intelligence in 1995. So I can code in pretty much most script languages, and I can code automations in artificial intelligence, which it may not be apparent what the benefit of that for a platform like this, but there's a lot of heavy lifting that goes on in the background, automating processes and operations, contacts with guests and so on. Now, if we can apply a bit of AI to this, what we can do is stay lean.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need an army of people managing all the kind of operational stuff in the background. We can stay lean, we can optimize that process, and it means we can scale to thousands of startups without having hundreds of people on board. So that's my contribution, to bring in the entrepreneurial background and to get out there and make rain. Because, as you know, I've done 400 plus podcast episodes. I'm very much comfortable in the public eye, and you probably see my face on LinkedIn pop up once in a while, every day probably for some people. So I'm happy going out there and raising the profile of Pitchdeck Asia. Joining me, Pratana, in the background. Yourself, where did you come from education-wise?
Yeah, so I'm actually from India. I did my undergrad and postgrad from Singapore. So undergrad from SIM and masters from SMU. But in the middle, I have done a lot of exchange. So I've gone for summer schools to LSE, UC Berkeley, and NTU as well. So I'm a people's person.
You are. And I think you're a very good sales person as well, in that sense.
So I like talking to people. I like figuring out what is actually bothering them, and that's what I come back with, and then we solve it.
Exactly. It's exactly what we need, is to listen to people's pain, right?
Exactly.
Okay, Pratana. Anish, yourself, your background, you're more of an analytical side.
Yes. I've worked for more than 10 years now, both with a corporate MNC sort of a company, as well as on the other spectrum, Singapore-based, more concierge sort of a company.
Yeah.
So both places it was more of working with like being either a product manager in my earlier company, where we had to, kind of work at new ideas and see which one works and take that forward, or with my earlier company, otherwise it was setting up new dealerships. So again, we would have to kind of find out which dealer would be good, those kind of things.
Yeah, it lends itself quite well to this platform as well. Setting up dealerships, almost like doing events in different countries as well, crunching the numbers, understanding, almost like in terms of a franchise as well. So, and Barrett, who is off mic at the moment, so maybe we can speak for himself. He's produced 200 plus. Yeah, he's nodding away. 200 plus live streams here as well. He is the man to go to. Every aspect of live streaming, video production, audio production, studio production, the lot. He's got it covered. So that's our man Barrett there. So he's probably as experienced as anybody. I would say probably one of the most experienced in Asia at the moment, if you think about it. Probably. You don't think about this stuff, do you, in those contexts? But that is the reality. You've probably done more shows than anybody in Asia right now as a studio producer. So that's what you want if this is a platform which is very much show-based. So that's us, and not forgetting shout out to Sean, who's joining us as well. So who is with us as an intern for the next 4 months, 3 months, 4 months. So he's really helping out as well. He had a startup, and we like having that kind of energy around us. Young lad with sort of entrepreneurial energy, set up a startup in university, going into national service shortly, but brings those kind of ideas and inputs as well. Now let's talk about where we're going with what we need to make this happen. So, funding requirements. The last two slides here is 205,000. See, not 205 US dollars, 205,000 US, about 270k Singapore dollars that we're looking for in seed, which will give us 9 months of replicating the product, which is the event, the platform, and the studio. So we validated them. The studio we've replicated many times, but can we maintain this for 9 months? Can we scale it into new markets? Can we scale the event into new markets? I see this play very much as a cookie cutter, which is now that we've worked it out, execute. Get the right team behind you to execute. And I think we've got a great team for execution, right? We are a team that really is good about, attention to detail, following through and making it happen. So that's what we are looking for 9 months. We don't have to massively scale our team, our cost base to make this happen. It's now just adding on new markets. So 9 months of replication, and our aim then is to go into November, December, so the end of Q4 with 100k cash in the bank. And there's a specific reason for that. 100k is revenues that we've generated ourselves, so we are now almost washing our face financially. But it also means that if the market turns, so if the private equity market turns in Q4, because we don't know what the outlook is for PE, that if the private equity market turns, we have enough money in the bank to see us through to break even, right? Yeah. So this has been calculated deliberately to preempt a market turn, because by that point, we will have enough to see us through that we can stand on our own. So if we didn't get a pre-Series A, we can still continue to grow this. We wouldn't run out of funds, which is always the risk associated with any startup. So those are our financials. 205,000 seed US. We can talk about valuations and minimum entry ticket on a face-to-face basis. Summarizing the benefits of Pitchdeck Asia. We're lean, AI-powered, operationally geared, an execution-focused team. We've validated our product, so people are willing to open their wallets for what we do. Obviously, we want to validate new levels of upsell there that we talk about here, for example, like the early stage fund. That's the real growth story. If we can build this, get 5,000 startups into the platform, then the next stage is we, as a part of that, we can take a percentage on leveraging the deals, attach a fund to that. We're making revenue already. And for our first angels in, we're giving them $1,000 platinum membership as charter members. So they will become members. So for the first angels in, we work very closely with them. I consider they will be our advisory team in this journey together. So we want angels who get it, who understand that the market's broken and want to be part of something which could change the face of the Asian startup ecosystem for the better, moving away from the entertainment and the bias and give everybody a voice. That is Pitchdeck Asia. Thank you, everybody, for watching our pitch. The best way to reach us is connect with us, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'll put all the details in the show notes. Any of my team as well, if you want to connect with them, that's fine. And if you are a startup interested in raising funds yourself, come to our platform and try it out. If you're an angel investor who is interested in startups and or interested in Pitchdeck Asia, come to one of our Pitchdeck Connect events and see for yourself, experience it for yourself. And hopefully you'll see that this is a much better way to connect startups and angel investors. There's 30 million of them out there. And, that is a market that is only growing 10 billion a year. So let's create a better platform for everybody. My name's Graham Brown. Thank you all to the Pitchdeck Asia team here in the studio for doing a great job of helping out with this special version of Pitchdeck Asia. We're signing out.